A warehouse worker watches their incident record disappear, then sees a supervisor close the gate to advanced equipment training anyway. The evidence is gone, but the restriction survives. The institution has changed its archive while leaving the worker's moral standing untouched. Deletion solves an information problem. It does not decide whether the corrected mistake may still govern present trust, opportunity, and treatment. Forgiveness changes the relationship, not merely the database. It limits what a past wrong may still justify after acknowledgement and repair. A missing record can therefore coexist with an unforgiving rule. Erasure removes evidence while an inherited restriction keeps the past in command. Imagine a deliberately constructed warehouse, not a claim about any employer or system. One worker makes a preventable inventory error during an ordinary shift. The worker reports the mistake, helps correct the shipment, and completes a defined corrective process under supervision. The original error remains acknowledged. After that process, the formal error record is deleted, yet a risk restriction created during the incident remains active in another workflow. The supervisor follows the surviving restriction, because no procedure declares when restored standing begins. The record is removed. Its moral shadow remains operational. To separate the concepts, ask what changes: the stored information, the account of what happened, a consequence, the relationship, or the damage itself. Each layer answers differently. Deletion changes what the archive retains or exposes. It can remove a record while leaving policies, habits, and human expectations formed around it. Storage alone settles nothing. Correction changes the factual account. It fixes an inaccurate description, but a fully accurate account may still support unfairly persistent treatment. Accuracy leaves authority unresolved. Pardon changes a specified consequence. A supervisor may waive one restriction while the institution still regards the worker as morally suspect. Waiver can remain partial. Forgiveness changes what the acknowledged wrong may continue to count against the person. It revises standing while preserving the truth of the event. Standing governs future treatment. Repair concerns what the person or institution does about the wrong. Acknowledgement, correction, restitution, changed practice, or rebuilt trust. Conduct makes repair observable. These acts can overlap, but they are not substitutes. Deletion changes storage, repair changes conduct, forgiveness changes the authority of the past. Distinct changes need distinct decisions. Deleting everything too early can erase evidence that the worker acknowledged the error and completed the corrective process. Closure needs repair evidence. If the institution preserves only the restriction, the archive becomes morally distorted. It remembers suspicion operationally while forgetting the work of making amends. Selective forgetting can distort. The worker then cannot point to the completed process when treatment is questioned. Forgetting the evidence can make institutional memory harsher, not kinder. Lost proof weakens challenge. Remembering the error forever creates the opposite problem. If repair cannot alter future treatment, the corrective process becomes performance without restored standing. Endless restriction empties repair. The moral purpose of repair is not merely to produce a better file. It is to create conditions under which the relationship can responsibly change. Relationship is the destination. Forgiveness does not deny that the mistake occurred. Denial rewrites the past. Forgiveness changes the past's permitted authority over the present. Acknowledgement and release coexist. That distinction protects accountability. The worker remains answerable for the original error and receives recognition for the actions taken afterward. Accountability includes later conduct. Forgiveness also does not require instant trust. Some responsibilities may return gradually when present uncertainty remains relevant to the role. Trust can return gradually. Restored standing can therefore be structured rather than absolute. The institution may end moral condemnation while applying proportionate, reviewable safeguards. Structure keeps safeguards reviewable. The key is that safeguards must track present reasons, not survive automatically as the unexamined residue of a deleted event. Present reasons require review. Repair becomes meaningful when it can trigger a declared transition, from responsible for an unresolved wrong to responsible after acknowledgement and correction. Completion changes normative status. That transition must reach downstream rules. Changing the main record means little if training, scheduling, or access restrictions remain connected elsewhere. Downstream systems must respond. These surviving rules form a moral shadow. They continue the judgment after its evidentiary source and corrective history have disappeared. Operational residue preserves judgment. Responsible closure requires an explicit standing update that reaches each consequential workflow, rather than assuming deletion will propagate moral repair. Closure must reach practice. The worker also needs contestability. If a restriction survives invisibly, there must be a practical way to identify and challenge the continuing treatment. Hidden restrictions need challenge. A declared transition should state what was acknowledged, what repair was completed, and how present treatment changes. Silence leaves the old judgment intact. Silence preserves prior standing. The institutional test is concrete: acknowledgement, completed repair, changed standing, downstream implementation, and a route to contest inconsistency. Consistency makes restoration real. A serious objection remains. Institutions cannot literally forgive because they do not possess feelings, resentment, compassion, or personal relationships. Emotion is not required. That objection identifies an important limit in this argument. Forgiveness, resentment, reconciliation, and understanding belong to people. Software executes classifications and rules they establish. Software executes human commitments. Institutional forgiveness is therefore an analogy grounded in human commitments. It appears through declared rules, responsible officials, and consistent changes in treatment. Officials carry the obligation. The commitment matters because forgiveness can fail through inconsistency. One supervisor may restore standing while another keeps acting on the old suspicion. Inconsistency defeats declared repair. A genuine institutional transition coordinates treatment across roles. It does not depend on private goodwill from whichever supervisor happens to be present. Coordination prevents moral drift, so the institution need not feel forgiveness. Its people must enact a commitment that the repaired wrong carries reduced authority over present treatment. Treatment makes commitment visible. Now take the strongest counterpoint seriously. A distribution center may need caution around equipment, inventory, and responsibilities with meaningful consequences. Caution can remain legitimate if a present risk remains relevant. Restored standing need not erase proportionate safeguards. Forgiveness is not the same as pretending uncertainty vanished. Current risk needs justification, nor does forgiveness create entitlement to any particular assignment. It removes unjustified moral residue. It does not cancel role requirements or current constraints. Eligibility remains separately assessed. This limits the claim restored standing, changes the presumption against the person, while present evidence and proportionate requirements may still guide decisions. Presumptions can still change. A rational exception exists when repair remains incomplete or the relevant condition continues. Declaring closure prematurely could abandon responsibility, rather than express forgiveness. Incomplete repair delays transition. The refined rule is conditional. End the past wrong's extra authority after meaningful repair, while retaining safeguards justified by present reasons. Present reasons set boundaries. Consider a validating case inside the scenario. The worker completes correction, demonstrates the revised process, and finishes supervised rotations with consistent performance. Consistent conduct supports restoration. At that point, continued exclusion would need a present justification. The deleted incident alone cannot carry the entire burden of the decision. Current justification bears weight. We can now answer the opening question. Deleting a mistake does not free someone when the institution leaves the mistake's authority embedded in treatment. Erasure cannot change rules. Responsible forgiveness begins by preserving the truth. What happened, who was affected, and what responsibility the person accepted. Truth anchors responsible closure. Next, define what counts as repair in this bounded relationship. Vague expectations let the institution postpone restored standing without a clear endpoint. Then declare the transition. The institution should state which restriction ends, which present safeguard remains, and what treatment follows. The change must propagate. Scheduling, training, access, and supervisory practice should reflect the same standing instead of carrying contradictory judgments. Finally, preserve contestability. If an old restriction reappears, the person needs a route to show completed repair and request consistent treatment. The full resolution is a declared change in standing. The fact remains true. The repair remains visible, and the past loses authority it no longer merits. This approach avoids two failures: erasing the wrong as though responsibility vanished, and preserving its authority as though repair had no moral effect. Responsible forgetting may preserve that a wrong occurred while ending its command over future treatment. Memory and release can coexist. When evaluating an institution, ask what deletion changed, what repair completed, which restrictions survived, and who can authorize restored standing. Keep the categories distinct. Deletion changes storage. Correction changes accuracy. Pardon changes a consequence. Repair changes conduct. And forgiveness changes standing. The next question reverses the pressure. When might preserving a record be necessary because another person needs it to establish responsibility? Deleting evidence is not the same as releasing a person from judgment. The machine is learning. The question is, what are we teaching it?